Hey there, welcome to Film in the Blank. My name's Ian, I watch a lot of movies. Here's everything I watched this month. I started the month off with Weapons, written and directed by Zach Cregger. It's hard to ask for a better year than the one Warner Brothers is having, with 3 highly talked about, financially successful films in Sinners, One Battle After Another, and Weapons. Weapons is definitely the most surprising of the 3 though, with its unique mix of morose zaniness and genuine scares. It's definitely a more polished film with more to say than director Zach Cregger's previous breakout hit Barbarian was, but it buckles under some of its own weight in a way that the light on its feet Barbarian never had to worry about. Cregger's style of telling his stories through non-sequential chapters certainly added some magic to that last act. It's just that second act that needed more focus and discipline in not just fleshing out interesting characters, but in doing so in a way that tells a unified story. The brilliant Amy Madigan invents one of the decade's most iconic villains out of whole cloth, and she deserves all the Oscars attention that comes her way. 3.5 stars. Then it amuses me, it's 1990's Goodfellas, written by Martin Scorsese and Nicholas Pileggi, and directed by Martin Scorsese. First off, sure, Joe Pesci is a scary dude in this, but have y'all seen Ray Liotta's weird little mouth when he's cackling? That's terror. I'd seen parts of this over the years, but never watched it start to finish. Scorsese's never given me anything less than extremely solid work, so this was mainly just a proof of life watch to make sure this is the cinema everyone says it is, and can confirm cinema. 4 stars. Up next, the biggest surprise of the month, The Naked Gun, written by Akiva Schaffer, Dan Greger, and Doug Mand, and directed by Akiva Schaffer. I haven't heard a theater laugh as hard at a film as they have for this in eons. The Naked Gun burns through jokes and gags at a speed that could be seen as reckless if the content wasn't so fucking strong. My favorite line has gotta be Liam Neeson complimenting Pamela Anderson's butt as the kind that makes any toilet that sees her coming start, quote, begging for the brown. That's horrifying in all the right ways. I'm so glad someone finally harnessed Liam Neeson's deadpan shtick for comedy instead of drama. More smart casting decisions like that in the future, please. 4.5 stars. Then Gene Tierney as one of the all-time great movie crazies, 1945's Leave Her to Heaven, written by Joe Swerling and directed by John M. Stahl. Leave Her to Heaven may have been made in the 40s, but it feels much more modern. It feels far closer to Gone Girl, Misery, or Decision to Leave than other noir melodramas of its time. I don't think the ultimate finished product is quite as strong as any of those films, but still a very engrossing ride. Also, not for nothing, Gene Tierney wears like 30 different outfits in this, and they're each the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. 3.5 stars. Next, buckle up, it's 1988's Akira, written by Katsuhiro Otomo, and Izo Hashimoto, and directed by Katsuhiro Otomo. Akira is not what I was expecting at all. After you get past the infamous bike slide in the opening sequence, things get stranger and stranger, evolving into a heady story that eats its own tail occasionally. It's not as psychologically distressing as, say, Satoshi Kon's films, or as playfully otherworldly as Miyazaki's films. It's rougher and more action-packed with a more biting tongue than I would have thought. All that to say, it's a ride very worth hopping on, and one that merits a rewatch in the near future to appreciate it more fully. 4 stars. Then, for some reason, 2025's I Know What You Did Last Summer, written by Jennifer Caton Robinson and Sam Lansky, and directed by Jennifer Caton Robinson. This is fish dookie any way you slice it. There's hardly anything scary or suspenseful, the plot is head-scratchingly stupid, and worst of all, the legacy characters are completely mismanaged and poorly used. Like I said, fish dookie. 1 star. Next, over to 1979's stunning Tess, written by Roman Polanski, Gerard Brock, and John Brown John, and directed by Roman Polanski. Tess is one of those every time you pause it, the screen is a literal painting kind of films. Not quite on the spectacular level of films like Barry Lyndon, but still gorgeous, and you can't do much better than Natasha Kinski when it comes to painting worthy muses. I didn't mind the 3-hour plus runtime, but some parts definitely could have been trimmed down and not lost their magic. 3.5 stars. Then for my 200th watch of the year, 2016's Arrival, written by Eric Heiserer and directed by Denis Villeneuve. Denis has made some capital C cinema, but for me, Arrival will always be his purest, sleekest triumph. In a genre almost always coated in cold, unfeeling detachment, Arrival embraces emotionality and warmth, anchored by Amy Adams bearing her soul as an actor like only she can. How the fuck was she not nominated for an Oscar for this? It's a hopeful, cautionary film that leaves me with the same chills I had when I left the theater almost a decade ago. Also, my fiance forgetting the end reveal and then re-remembering it was its own little mini Arrival movie in itself. Loved watching that unfold. 5 stars. Then, on its 100th anniversary, I watched 1925's The Freshman, written by Sam Taylor, Ted Wilde, John Gray, and Tim Whelan, and directed by Fred C. Neumeier and Sam Taylor. Can we please bring back doing a jig every time you meet someone new? It's so heinous it loops back around and is actually pretty endearing. It's that endearing earnestness oozing out of Harold Lloyd that gives his comedy such a pop. My favorite bit in this has gotta be Harold Lloyd's suit actively falling apart at a party while his tailor frantically tries to fix it in real time. Comedy at its purest. 4 stars. Up next, a terrific three-handed psychological thriller, The Assessment, written by Nell Garfath Cox, Dave Thomas, and John Donnelly, and directed by Fleur Fortune. The Assessment follows a young couple living in a climate change-ravished dystopia who open their home and lives to a government assessor who will determine if they're suitable for having a child. Not all of the very heavy-handed world-building and lore worked for me, but I can see why those big swings were necessary to have the story end up where it did. It's tightly paced and doesn't overplay its hand, which, when it comes to small-scale, character-based sci-fi, is all you really need. Also, I'm gonna go ahead and call it now, Alicia Vikander will win at least 2 more Oscars late in her career. There's nothing she can't do, and she's only getting better with age. 4 stars. Then why is everyone's hair in this flawless? It's 1984's Streetwise, directed by Martin Bell. Streetwise is a high-wire balancing act documenting the lives of 9 teenagers living on the streets of 1980s Seattle. It gives unprecedented access to their lives, from the horrors and unpredictability of their daily lives to the pulsing sense of freedom many cling to like a life preserver. They're floundering in a sea of ill-equipped parents, pervasive violence, and a general disregard for them as human beings, and yet they're not broken. It's a testament to the power of subtle filmmaking and has some phenomenal editing work to boot. 4.5 stars. Then the long-gestating companion film to Streetwise, 2016's Tiny the Life of Erin Blackwell, directed by Martin Bell. This was solid, but didn't resonate as profoundly as Streetwise did. Erin shadowboxing with her past, through her kids, through her addictions, through her demons. All of it is a startling juxtaposition to her giggly 13-year-old self in Streetwise. It's fascinating and heartbreaking to see Erin so thoughtfully outline the ways her own mother failed in their relationship in one minute, then turn around and blindly fail her own children in the exact same ways in the next. It's a haunting, soulful echo of a life lived on the ropes. 3.5 stars. Then I watched 1962's The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, written by James Warner Bella and Willis Goldbeck, and directed by John Ford. First off, you can't have a character casually mention the sheep wars and then keep going with the film. The rest of the film is now meaningless. I'm only about the sheep wars now. Sheep wars aside, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is particularly thoughtful for a Western, with focus placed on heady ideas like who bears responsibility for systemic violence. Not to knock John Ford's direction, but it's the performances and writing here that really shine. 3.5 stars. Next, it's 1996's Set It Off, written by Takashi Buford and Kate Lanier, and directed by F. Gary Gray. It was very smart to cast someone as dog shit at acting as Dr. Dre is to add even more contrast to Vivica, Jada, and Miss Latifah nailing it. The film, though, feels torn between 2 very different versions of itself, one a spunky, humor-forward heist movie, and the other a very dour social issues film mired in despair. Each half works well at different times, but the disjointed nature was always present regardless. Like, how is a film tackling serious issues like police brutality and gun violence, the same film that spent half its $9 million budget on the rights to play the Godfather theme in one goofy scene where a puffy-cheeked Vivica A. Fox does a Marlon Brando impression? Make it make sense. 3 stars. Then a film way ahead of its time, 1967's Le Samouraï, written by Jean-Pierre Melville and Georges Pellegrin, and directed by Jean-Pierre Melville. Le Samouraï follows Alain Delon as an inscrutable Paris hitman with a clearly defined code of honor as he sorts through the aftermath of a hit gone wrong. More than most films, Le Samouraï has a symbiotic relationship between each side of the camera, with the laid-back precision of Jean-Pierre Melville's direction blending perfectly with the effortless cool of Alain Delon's performance. Alain Delon is so cool that he makes chunky janitor key rings seem chic. Let that sink in. The middle of the film lost some of its steam, but the delicate way the ending crystallizes together made it all worth it and then some. 4.5 stars. Then, further proof that nothing good happens on a boat, Dangerous Animals, written by Nick Leppard and directed by Sean Byrne. The solid first 20 minutes is like a giant shark's fin scarily gliding above the surface, then you poke your head under the water to see how monstrous the rest of the film is, and it's just this dinky little nurse shark with like 3 teeth. And you know what? That's fine. I wasn't expecting much out of this going in, it's a fun enough ride, and Jay Courtney didn't bump for me for the first time in forever, so I'll take it. 3 stars. Up next, 1965's Redbeard, written by Akira Kurosawa, Masato Ide, Hideo Oguni, and Ryuzo Kikushima, and directed by Akira Kurosawa. Redbeard was a milestone film for Kurosawa. It was his last black and white film and his last with longtime collaborator Toshiro Mifune. It's far and away one of his most emotional films, but most importantly, it's a masterclass in one scene supporting characters, grabbing the spotlight and not letting go until they've thoroughly acted their asses off. So many scenes in this feature fleeting performances that rivet you, make you feel something, and then disappear into the background with grace. Just terrific. 4.5 stars. Up next, a film with a title my fiancé would mutter under his breath anytime a car was on screen, 2000's Traffic, written by Stephen Gaghan and directed by Steven Soderbergh. Watching Traffic a quarter century after its release and feeling like this could have been made this year is quite an achievement. The sprawling story dovetails nicely with Soderbergh's mutable directing style, and the cast brings it to life well. I would have just liked more focus across the board. For me, the film indulges certain characters to a degree that hinders the overall narrative. I guess that's the nature of the beast with a story and structure like Traffic's, but still bumped for me. 4 stars. Then I watched 1980's The Stunt Man, written by Lawrence B. Marcus and directed by Richard Rush. I thought this was too long and didn't take its gaslighty premise far enough, but at least that ending hits. I've got absolutely no clue how this squeaked out director, actor, and screenplay Oscar noms. The Oscars in the 80s were a total crapshoot and I will never understand it. 3 stars. Next, I finally got around to checking out the obligatory summer Pixar film, Elio, written by Adrian Molina and directed by Adrian Molina, Madeline Sharafian, and Domi Shi. This felt like the same safe, paint-by-number stuff that Pixar has put out the last few years. There's cute stuff here and there, but the prevailing impression everything gives is that it was designed in a lab to be inoffensive. Compared to things like The Boy and the Heron, Flow, Robot Dreams, or Across the Spider-Verse, there's just much more engaging, boundary-pushing genius out there in animation that Pixar isn't a part of. 2.5 stars. Next, another great noir for the month, 1947's Out of the Past, written by Daniel Mainwaring and directed by Jacques Turner. I gotta double check my math, but I'm pretty sure there's not a double cross, not a triple cross, but an octuple cross in here, and I bought it every time. That's some solid noir. It's also maybe the most plot I've ever seen in a movie this short. Like, go read the Wikipedia plot synopsis of this and tell me how all that fits into 97 minutes. 3.5 stars. Then, if you're not a fan of this next film, you're a keyboard. It's 2010's Dogtooth, written by Efthimis Philippou and Yorgos Lanthimos, and directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. Dogtooth is a film comprised entirely of ideas so poor they start to make sense in an upside-down world kind of way. Like, at first you hear a licking-based barter system and you think, what a distinctly horrible idea, but if you think about it a little bit longer, it's still hot garbage, actually. Forget what I said. This is a truly great film, by the way. 4.5 stars. Then I watched 1958's The Defiant Ones, written by Nedrick Young and Harold Jacob Smith, and directed by Stanley Kramer. First, the fact that Sidney Poitier and Tony Curtis didn't kiss a single time in this is bullshit. They're two guys chained together, sweaty, running for their lives, cuddling at night to keep warm, and not a single awkward kiss. It's bullshit. At the very least, it would have alleviated a lot of the racial tension, so 4 stars. Up next, Guns is Crazy. It's 2005's Lord of War, written and directed by Andrew Niccol. Other than that rad opening sequence tracking the life of a bullet, there's not much remarkable here. Nicolas Cage doesn't even seem to be having much fun playing this admittedly larger-than-life character. I toyed with a lower score, but I think the globe-trotting plot and serviceable direction help raise it back up to 3 stars. Then some desert exploitation with 1943's Sahara, written by Zoltan Korda and John Howard Lawson, and directed by Zoltan Korda. Sahara follows the soldiers of an allied tank stranded in the Sahara Desert who decide to defend one of the last wells in the region against thirsty Axis soldiers. It isn't as dry and rickety as I first thought, with some nice chemistry between all the men and some genuinely funny moments that surprised me, including one where the soldiers are trying to make the enemy believe they have more water than they do, so they stage a perspective-distorting shower scene in the distance for the enemy to see. Never forget, people, if you're stranded in the desert, you can and should still be doing bits. 3.5 stars. Up next, a strong case for never having kids, 1992's Benny's Video, written and directed by Michael Haneke. This was one of the last big Haneke films I hadn't seen, and honestly, it's pretty tame for Haneke and a story rooted in the psychology of violence. I was, however, really drawn to how Haneke shot this, especially how voyeuristic he forces the audience to be. He plays several scenes through windows, depriving the audience of dialogue and instead giving them plenty of time to size up characters and unpack the film's weighty themes. It's not top-tier Haneke for me, so I'll give it 3.5 stars. Then I watched 1952's The Greatest Show on Earth, written by Frederick M. Frank, Barry Lyndon, and Theodore St. John, and directed by Cecil B. DeMille. Some of the behind-the-scenes circus stuff is interesting to see, but most of the time it's a slog. Of all the dangerous circus feats in this, the most death-defying is Betty Hutton pretending to be in a love triangle with the charming, chiseled Cornell Wilde and the craggly lunk that is Charlton Heston. At least use a net, girl. 2 stars. And I finished the month with 1974's Scenes from a Marriage, written and directed by Ingmar Bergman. Seeing Liv Ullmann's smile in a film is so disconcerting, like seeing one of your teachers at the grocery store. There's nothing inherently off-putting about it, but still it doesn't feel right. As is often the case with Bergman, the scene work is the big standout, although compared to others of his films, I think the scene work outshone the overall film here by a good amount. You can very clearly see how this project was better suited to its original TV miniseries format rather than the theatrical film cut I watched, so the next time I watch this, I'm coming for you, miniseries. 4 stars. Let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts on these movies? Any others I should check out? Are you a veteran of the Sheep Wars? Also stay tuned for other great commentary videos, reviews, video essays, and more. You can check me out on Letterboxd at Cineramadome24 or on TikTok at Film in the Blank. I appreciate you liking and subscribing. See you next time.